Use the power of discovering new habits to create success in all areas of life. Body, fitness and nutrition, being, spirituality, passion and purpose, balance, marriage, kids and relationships, business, marketing, sales, leadership and systems. Transform your life by learning how habits work. And now your host, husband, father, entrepreneur, trainer, coach, and warrior, Jesse Buell.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Buell, and today we're going to be talking about the habit of the inner critic. Do you have a habit of letting your inner critic take over? See, one of the things that came up for me this last week is I made a post where I had flipped off the camera, and it got a lot of people to look at it. But I don't really understand. I don't really think people understood what it actually meant. You see, I was on a coaching call with one of my clients, and I had asked him how much he had been marketing and posting videos on social media and describing what he does. And this man happens to have a business that is driven directly off social media, building funnels, even like autoresponders and things like this. And here he is, this businessman that gets probably 95 to 96% of his business off of social media, not actually marketing. And so he went in to make a few excuses. And this, like, as this came up, this is one of the things that I see as this huge problem in business. And kind of how this went down was like, hey, here's how I feel about those excuses. And I ended up flipping him off. And then I thought about it for a second. I said, hey, I want you to take a picture of this. And as I got off the call, and during this call, we went into a deeper conversation. You see, we have access today to free marketing on social media through so many places. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Like, these are just the popular ones. Even, like, those are ones that you don't even have to pay for. And then you can do podcasting. You can do all these things for free every single day, but you still don't do it. People still do not do it. On top of it, like, all of these things actually have paid marketing, like where you can actually access and pay for marketing, and it's not super expensive, but they still don't use it. And so as we sat there on the call, it's like, hey, what did you want to make over the next 3 months? Or what have you wanted to make? And it's like, man, I wanted to make $60,000. And I'm like, listen, have you paid $6,000 for marketing? No. Have you done free marketing? No. And so the conclusion is this: if you're not using free marketing, there's no way in hell you're going to actually use paid marketing. And maybe you might be listening to this and you might say, well, hey, my business doesn't really count. It doesn't apply to my business. Social media doesn't. And I will say to you directly that that's bullshit. You may not be okay with posting or putting your stuff out there, but every business is marketable on social media. Even if it isn't the business you're marketing, you are marketable on social media. So let me back up to a few months ago, like roughly 6-7 months ago. And if I'm being truthful, the place I am today, even today, there's times where I really don't feel like posting on social media. Like, I have literally had to force myself to get in the habit of doing this just over the last 6-7 months. Now, if you don't know my story or part of it, or maybe you just haven't listened long enough or been a listener, I had a change in job that was coming to an end. My contract was coming up, and I had no longer had this, stable income. This is back in November, early November, or late November, early December. But basically, my job was coming to an end. But I had to make this choice, and the choice was this. Either I begin to post on social media, not just when I felt like it, but every single day. I began to bring value. I began to just communicate like, well, hey, here's what's going on. Here's where I'm at. But I had to begin to get in the habit of doing this. And there's days where I want to avoid this like the plague. Trust me, there's lots of feelings that come up the minute you start posting stuff. A lot of times for people, they'll post, motivational stuff. They'll post, all these positivity things. And it really just lets you know what's really going on in their life. Generally, it's the opposite. And so, as you get into the habit of doing this, or as you see this, the feelings that would come up for me a lot of times is I would get annoyed. I would get frustrated that I just didn't want to do it. I would get triggered by people commenting. I would get triggered by what people posted. So at times I felt exposed depending on what I was posting that day. You feel weak. And in the midst of this, stories would come up. I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to expose my life. I don't want to be judged. I just want to be left alone. Like, believe it or not, I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. So if I had the choice, it would be to not put myself out there. But on the other side of these stories and these things that I would tell myself, these feelings that I was having, was this thing called what I actually want, what I'm actually committed to. And you see, if I want all of these things, if I want a successful business, if I want to make an impact on people's lives, whether they work with me or not, if I want to get people to a place where they choose to be all in on themselves or choose out on changing, if I want to make money, if I want to support my family, if I really want all of these things, then guess what? I have to stick a middle finger up to my inner critic. I have to sit there and say, listen, your feelings don't matter because your feelings are getting in the way of what you actually want. And when they get in the way of what you want, then it's time to shut the inner critic down. You see, what's really crazy about all of this is 7.5 months ago, I didn't have my own business, at least habit-based lifestyle. I was working for Wake Up Warrior as the head certified trainer, training and coaching men to get certified. I was making great money. I hadn't even launched this podcast that you're listening to. And now I'm nearly 80 episodes in later. Actually, I think I'm over 80 episodes. My book wasn't even finished. I wrote a book called Man in the Mirror that was launched in mid-December. In fact, at that time, I was pretty much silent on Facebook outside of hiding behind one text post that I might do every day. And I didn't really care if I missed. But there wasn't a lot of substance to that. So in literally 6.5, 7 months, I've consistently posted every single day. Not once, not twice, but multiple times a day, 3 to 4 times a day across several different social media accounts. And I could tell you this, I've probably missed less than 10 times. And doing over 80 podcasts, I began to quit listening to my inner critic. I stopped judging myself. I started blocking out all the noise, and the person that had the most noise and had the most judgment was actually me. And as I began to launch this podcast and as I began to speak up, what I began to find was me actually being able to listen to my own podcast and actually get something out of it. Like I began to, in the beginning, I could remember barely even being able to listen to it. And all the way when I got to about episode 30, I was like, man, like I'm really getting a lot of value from this. I'm learning a lot. even though I was the one teaching it. And so when I knew I was getting value from it, I knew that other people were. I stopped listening to the inner critic that told me I couldn't launch my own book. I didn't have a story. I didn't have anything to say. And you know what? There's a new one coming soon. I'm in the process of writing a new book called Habit-Based Lifestyle. It's talking about all the habits, everything that I do, the lifestyle that I live. It's going to be coming out in the next 6 to 8 weeks. In that same time, I launched a coaching program, Habit-Based Lifestyle, 30-day boot camps. And I've been able to coach nearly 75 clients. I also launched a marriage boot camp with my wife. I created a 6-figure coaching business in less than 120 days. I've coached men. I've coached women. I coach married couples. I coach my wife. I coach my number one client, myself. And here's the one thing about coaching yourself is the inner critic will always come up. But if I can't convince my wife and myself to coach with me, then I'm screwed. Doesn't mean I have to coach with them, but it means that there's a part of me that's going to be out of integrity. And why do I say all this? Because if I listened to the inner critic, if I listened to that guy 7 months ago, I would have never done any of this. I would have never started my podcast. I would have never finished writing a book with my story. I would have never launched my own coaching business. I would have never launched this marriage boot camp that I'm about to do this weekend with my wife. So my question is this: what about you? Where in your life do you need to shut the inner critic out? Do you need to shut them down? Maybe it's in communicating through marketing on social media. Maybe it's just getting up and speaking for the first time what's actually inside of you, the truth that's inside of you. Because for a long time, I suppressed that. I let the inner critic control me instead of my voice allow me to speak. So what about you? What's holding you back from shutting that inner critic down? And where do you need to go all in on you? And just begin to speak out. So I appreciate you guys being on here today. I hope you got a lot of value from this because this was a big deal for me. This was a huge episode, not only this, but it just really made me reflect back on what I've accomplished just over the last 7 months and how you can look back if you just keep going forward and you block out that inner critic, what's actually possible on the other side of that. So thank you guys for being on here. If you're looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook. This is where I'll be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. If you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle, maybe you have some questions, comments, please feel free to leave me a review. Feel free to contact me, jesse@habitbasedlifestyle.com. You can also check out my website, JESSEEWELL.com. Until next episode, have a great day.